Time for world politics, and we'll be talking about what's going on in the world of politics, both here and abroad, and seeing what folks have to say about a number of these political stories that are out there and what people's reactions are, and all along those lines. As I was saying on the morning show, I know that President Trump is saying that he is the acting president of Venezuela, and people are talking about that, and they're talking about a number of other things that are going on in the political front as well. So I'll definitely get to some of these stories and see what Rick's got going on in his world and what he's seeing and hearing both on the Drudge Report and in other sources as well. So we've got a lot of things that are going on in the world, and definitely I think that JD Vance is supposed to be having a summit around Greenland and all along those lines. So there's conversations about what's going on in Greenland and how that will play out, and whether we're going to have some military action in that country as well. So people are paying attention to that, and of course people are trying to figure out what's going on in the sense of how they are doing in their daily life and everything like that, and how they are surviving, because a lot of people are saying that they don't have day-to-day money. And definitely there was this whole notion of whether there would be some money coming from the government, but now that looks like that's being put on hold, and who knows, you might get it in the summer, you might get it in the fall, you might get it never, and every other thing along those lines. But there's definitely conversations about what's going on in that space and whether there will be any sort of stimulus money from this government. In the Iran crisis live, Trump says killers of protesters will pay a big price and urges Iranians to take over their institutions. And Supreme Court appears to back the ban on trans athletes. So that is definitely something that is going on in the political front as well. So I've got Sasha Starr with me and Rick Rosner. I've also got this notion that Greenland Prime Minister prefers Denmark ties over U.S. ahead of the meeting with J.D. Vance. So it looks like that might be going on. And Iran is shutting down Musk Starlink for the first time. So Iran is hunting down Starlink users to stop protest videos from going global. So that is definitely something that people are talking about as well. And they're also talking, even in CBS News, about a rampaging elephant that killed at least 20 people, including children, in India. And they're searching for the single-tusked elephant after 22 were killed. That's the last number that we were hearing, and everything like that. And the mom of one of Elon Musk's kids says AI chatbot Grok generated sexual deepfake images of her, and is saying to make it stop. So apparently Grok is undressing people online, and folks are asking how to fix that. So I'll bring in Rick Rosner so he can give us some comments about Grok and how Grok is working, because there's a lot of these deepfake images.
The Grok often goes against what Musk says, because Musk gets increasingly crazy in what he's posting. This is Ashley St. Clair, one of the, 9 or 10 different baby mamas that Musk has impregnated. And she's also calling him out for, turning X into a website for hateful assholes and spreading misinformation. So, yeah, she's calling him out for everything. Well, let's talk about Iran for a second. So This is, I think, day 5 of Iran shutting off the internet to the entire country, so people can't find out what's going on and can't share anything about what's going on. At least the government has killed at least 2,000 protesters, and some people are saying it might be as many as 10,000. Since the Ayatollahs took over in '79, this is probably the closest that Iran has come to their having their government fall, though it's not clear, especially since they've cut off communication, how close that is. There have been a number of mass protests over the years since '79, but the government has stood. Like I said, this has the highest death toll of any of the protests, so but it's still not clear whether that's going to be enough to make the government fall.
Yeah, well,
It's not going to be enough. No. The protests will be dealt with brutally, and there will be a very heavy toll. $10,000, 10,000 people. I've heard the number 12,000 already, and nobody knows how far it could go in the next day or two. The problem is that this regime, such as Ayatollah in Iran, they will fight until the very last possibility, and their guards, revolutionary guard, the personal army of Ayatollah Qasir, how it goes, they are going to fight for their lives, because in any regime change, all these people will be punished and probably even killed and tried and so on. So they will be fighting. And don't forget, they are very well armed. They all have weapons of all kinds. And the protesters, they don't. So this is going to be unfortunately, it will be a tragedy where thousands, if not tens of thousands of people will be killed. That's a reality. Now, the problem is that Trump was saying that if Iran will be killing the protesters, peaceful protesters, that then United States will get in and they will help the protesters and so on. Nothing of that is happening at all. So they allow the Ayatollah and his regime to kill tens of thousands of people for nothing, just because maybe if he wouldn't say that, maybe people in Iran will be more careful. Maybe they wouldn't get on the streets in the numbers that they are there now. So at least they would have a choice between what to do. But when Trump is saying and people are taking that straight up and acting upon that, this is a betrayal of Iranian people.
So the Guard, the Revolutionary Guard in Iran, a country of 90 million people, has 150,000 active personnel estimated. And this is not the regular military, which is a separate force. These are the guys with guns patrolling the cities. And Trump can, say he's going to take action, but it would be hard to figure out how he could take action, because this is fighting and killing in the streets. You can't just drop a bomb on a military barracks, because these Revolutionary Guard, I assume, are well spread out in all the cities, and you can't take them out from the air.
Well, then just shut up and don't say anything. If you don't know what to do and how to do and when to do, shut up. You're busy with Venezuela, Greenland, you're a busy man. So why are you saying something that you cannot do? You cannot implement what you're promising people of Iran you would do. You would help them or so on. You can't. So then shut up.
Well, apparently he's not going to set up, because apparently he's also getting ready to lead the largest ever U.S. delegation to the World Economic Forum in Davos next week and everything like that. So it looks like he's going to come to Europe, and I guess he's going to try to impose his will on Europe and other parts of the world as well. So what is our thought around this? Because I'm guessing he'll bring Pete Hetchis and maybe Marco Rubio and a bunch of others, but they are saying it's going to be the largest ever U.S. delegation to the World Economic Forum in Davos. And I've heard that that's a very popular form of world leaders.
Can we go back to Iran for one more thing? Because one thing Trump's doing that is, not as dumb as some of his other stuff. He says he's going to, it's still pretty dumb. He's going to raise tariffs by 50% on any country that continues to trade with Iran.
That will take 10 or 20 years to be implemented.
Right. So, it's a slow, that the protests are, a lot of them are going on because the Iranian economy is in a shambles. And Iran is already under, I guess some sanctions, but sanctions take, like you said, years to work.
And first of all, Iran is under sanctions for the last almost 50 years. Second of all, Iran is extremely skillful in go around the sanctions, and that's how they continue to act for the last almost 50 years. So this talk about further sanctions against Iran, this is complete nonsense.
Well, speaking of complete nonsense and everything, but this doesn't sound like nonsense. I just wanted your take on this. I'm going to come to your part of the world, your other part of the world, which is, I know you're originally from Ukraine, but this is Canada and everything. It looks like your prime minister is going to visit China after nearly a decade of tense relationships, and China is urging Canada to break from U.S. influence as Prime Minister Carney is visiting Beijing, and it looks like they're trying to reduce their dependence on the U.S. There's even talk about some canola and everything along those lines. So what is your take on this? And is this a good move by both Canada and China?
Yeah, listen, it depends. What's your point of view? It's a good thing for Canada and China. Maybe it's not so good for the United States. So this really depends on what's your point of view. I think that Canada must diversify. They cannot depend on only one country in all its trade decisions and policies. So on. It's impossible. And the day came where Canada, whether they want Canada or it doesn't want, Canada must act to diversify away from the United States. It's a given thing. There's no other way to do it.
So question for you, Sasha. We're looking at a BBC article that talks about what would happen if Trump did bomb Iran or let Israel bomb Iran. Now, they can't take out the Revolutionary Guard, but they could take out military targets. Would that change the situation at all? Would it piss off people? Would it make people calm down and get behind the government because they are being attacked from outside, or is it just entirely unpredictable?
Well, they have to start from the top. They need to eliminate Ayatollah, all his people next in command. So then when you take over and you eliminate the top people who are in command of Iranian army and the guards, revolutionary guards and others, then it will be a domino effect. Then the protesters, they have a real chance to take over institutions of in each city where they're protesting or so on. They have now a power and actually fundamental right to take over actions, and especially if there would be somehow projected return of the Shah, the son of late Shah of Iran, if he would be able to return and claim the power. And I think the presence of US and to a certain extent maybe Israel, it will definitely help to Iran. By the way, I noticed in Toronto there were a lot of meetings and protests of Iranians and Israelis together. They were protesting together, and they were saying that before 1979, we were like brothers, we were visiting each other, and we got friends, and all that changed with the Ayatollah coming to power, and now let's take the power back in our hands.
Yeah, and I see that the U.S., it looks like earlier today, the Treasury and the State Department designated the Muslim Brotherhood branches in Egypt, Lebanon, and Jordan, and I believe those are all three allied countries, if I remember correctly, as a terrorist. So they're saying that that particular group is a terrorist organization. So that means that they probably have the right to take them out and everything like that. So it looks like they are giving them that terrorist designation. And that was reported earlier today by several worldwide media outlets and everything like that. So, and speaking of other things going on in the world in terms of protests, France is in the news. And part of the reason France is in the news is because they are not happy about the EU Mercosur deal. So apparently French farmers staged a new Paris protest in an effort to halt that deal. and it looks like they drove 350 tractors to Parliament to protest low incomes and EU trade deal. So what do you think? Because I know y'all had a trucker strike, I think that was last year, and everything about these efforts by truckers and other folks to use the power of their equipment to disrupt Parliament and to disrupt travel and everything like that. Because it sounded like the Canadian strike was fairly effective, and we'll see how it works out in Paris. But there's some 350 tractors that converged on Paris in the latest farmers' protest there in that country. So what is our take on those type of protests?
So they're protesting exactly against what? Let me understand. What is the ground for protest, and what exactly they want to achieve?
They sounds like they're protesting about the way that they are paid and about the EU trade deal. Sounds like they're saying that the EU trade deal is not fair to the farmers of France and everything like that. So they're thinking that this deal is beneficial to Mercosur, the company, as well as the EU, but isn't necessarily beneficial to them. And they were also protesting around low income and not making enough money and everything like that. And that's oftentimes, I think that's even what the truckers were protesting about, but you would know that better than I do because you followed that story a lot more.
Well, and it's limited only to France or other countries as well protesting.
There may be other countries that joined the protest. This is what was happening in Paris, and they were trying to disrupt the parliament in that particular country. I mean, there have been similar protests in the U.S. in the past. There have been similar protests, like I said, in Canada. There have been similar protests in other parts of the globe as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't spread, if there's a concern about the impact of this particular deal and everything like that. So I would not be surprised if it doesn't spread.
I don't know. I'm not a big proponent of public protests, and especially when you disrupt the normal way of life of a city or sometimes even country for whatever grievances you have that you're not paid enough or you're not making money or so on. That's what happened in Ottawa some time ago when they protested and they blocked the roads and so on. And eventually it all came down to, we've heard you, thank you, and go back home.
Yeah,
The story.
All right, so I want to talk about the Supreme Court. We talked about it on the morning show, but I got more information. The Supreme Court looks like, since it's got a conservative majority, it will rule in favor.
I think they already did rule.
Okay, so they ruled in favor of banning trans athletes from girls' sports in Idaho and in West Virginia. And in each case, there's only one athlete in Idaho, one athlete in West Virginia who will be banned because they're not big states. There are very few trans athletes. So, but this ban will, since it comes from the SCOTUS, it will apply to probably all the states who want to do it.
I think it was like 28 states or something like that. So there was a bunch of states. It wasn't just, I don't think it was just red states. I think it was a variety of states and everything like that. You know, when we were doing.
Hold on. There's an easy thing to do when you're talking about one athlete in the entire state. Now, the athlete in West Virginia is a good athlete, and she could actually win her events. The one in Idaho, not so good, can't win anything, couldn't even make her varsity teams. So, but anyway, if you have a good athlete who's trans and they happen to win their event, then give them the gold medal. Then give the next runner-up a gold medal too. Like, I mean, it's not perfect, but then nobody suffers. Frickin', you give out 2 gold medals, you give out a silver and a bronze, but no, instead you make it into this huge political thing that ended up with Trump getting elected again.
Yeah, so it'd be form medals and everything like that. I know when we were doing the show earlier this morning, Sasha and everything, Ivan was in there, and actually his power went out while we were doing the show. and they're saying hundreds of thousands of households in Kyiv are without power after Russian strikes. And I know he was talking about the temperature, and it was definitely very frigid. I think he said it was like 18 below Celsius or something like that. So it was definitely very cold, and everything is the temperature is definitely getting well below freezing. So I just wanted your take on this, because even the Guardian was saying that one of the people was saying they want to break us by going to the energy grid and everything like that. But I know that the Ukrainians are very steadfast in their determination to make sure that they are not overrun. But I was just wondering your take on this, because that is very cold temperatures to be dealing with that Ivan has to be facing today.
I must say that what Ukrainians are doing in the last 4 years, it's absolutely unprecedented, and no other country in the world, I'm saying that loud and clear, no other country in the world could withstand that. Whether it's a France or UK or US, or it doesn't matter. People would get on their knees and beg for forgiveness. Please stop these bombardments. Please spare us. Leave us alive. Please, please, please. That's what would happen with any other country in the world. It's only Ukrainians who are fighting until the very last moment. And they are, in spite of the US, swindled Ukraine for almost a year. There was no help from US. When Trump became a president, everything stopped. And Ukraine is still there. Thank God to help from European Union countries. And they are providing now financing, the weapons, the support, the diplomatic support, everything. And they believe that Ukraine is a part of Europe. It's a part of a line of resisting to Russian invasion of Europe, which may sometimes happen in the future. But I think Ukraine exhausted Russia to such a degree that Russia for the next 50 years will never have aggression against anybody.
Well, that would be good. So last night, 500 high-rise buildings were without power in Kyiv. Mm-hmm. Russia launched 300 attack drones, 18 ballistic missiles, 7 cruise missiles. But Ukraine is the most European country since World War II to be subject to war and invasion like this.
And it's not a war. A war, you would imagine that there is a Russian army, Ukrainian army, and they're fighting each other. No, this is a complete act of terrorism, what Russians are doing. It's not a war. It's a terrorism in any sense of this word. It's absolute terrorism in its wars. And where is Trump? Where is Donald Trump? Why wouldn't he tell his friend Putin, hey, stop it, please, right now? Where is he?
Well,
here's some more Trump news. Trump has announced that he has whipped inflation. He's beaten inflation because inflation is only 2.7%. So last year, when inflation under Biden was 2.7%, that was a terrible number. But now that it's Trump's number, Trump is announcing victory.
Yeah, not exactly. He's apparently changing the EPA as well, because now he's saying that the EPA is going to change how it considers the costs and benefits of air pollution rules. So before they looked at how many lives were lost and everything like that, but they're going to stop considering lives saved by limiting air pollution. So we do know that air pollution has an impact on health and on people's lives and even their ability to live. But apparently we're not going to. Trump's EPA is clashing with the administration's purported MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, air pollution goals. So apparently there's even some conflict going on in their own administration as well. But I guess they're not.
So let's talk about specifics here. What they mean is the EPA in the past 20, 30, 50 years has come out with figures on, because they know that, if you run a coal plant, mm-hmm. and it's putting out X amount of coal dust into the air, they can estimate how many excess deaths this coal dust will cause. And the EPA under Trump is saying, we're not going to do that math anymore. The only math we're going to do is how much is it going to cost companies to scrub the coal dust before it gets out in, how much is it going to cost a coal company to put a scrubber on their smokestacks? So no lives saved, only money that they're going to be all pissed off because it might cost a coal company $250,000 to install a scrubber to reduce the amount of pollution they put out.
Yep. And another story that I know you brought up earlier today was the case of Renee Good and everything like that. And apparently there is a major poll out that says that folks are wanting criminal charges for the Trump ICE agent who killed Renee Good. It's favored by a whopping 23-point spread. And we know that polls aren't always accurate, but they're saying 27% of Americans think the Minneapolis ICE shooting was justified. So that means that the vast majority don't think it was justified.
So the numbers have been running nearly 2-to-1 against the cop. One survey I saw had it 53% thought it was a bad shooting, 28% thought it was a good shooting, 18% didn't know. But Trump's DOJ is investigating. But what they're investigating isn't the shooting. They're investigating if the murder victim's wife was tied to activist groups. And because they've shut down the state investigation, because a bad shooting, a cop can be brought up on state charges and federal charges. Well, the feds have taken over the investigation, but aren't investigating. And they're stopping. They've said they're not sharing any investigative any evidence with the state investigators,
because they would have to disclose what exactly they are investigating.
Right.
So their point of view is that if her wife was involved in some activities, then the shooting is justified. Now, if she was not involved, then shooting is not justified. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
No, it doesn't at all.
And 6 in the state of Minnesota, 6 Department of Justice investigators have resigned because of this, calling it bullshit.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, Rick and Sasha, along those same lines, I know we oftentimes hear about the impeachment of the president, and I think there have been cases of the impeachment like Spiro Agnew of the vice president, but apparently 50 House Democrats have signed on to Kristi Noem impeachment article. So I guess we can impeach somebody that has been appointed by the president as well. So what is y'all's thoughts around this? And part of this is around not just her handling of Minneapolis, but other things as well. But it looks like they are debating the possible consequences for ICE and even Noem. And one of those might be that she gets impeached. I had never heard of
Let's leave aside the cruelty. She's been wildly ineffective. Trump said he would deport 1 million illegals in his first year. Well, it's been a year and he's only deported 600,000. Of the 600,000, they've rounded up nearly 3/4, 73% have been guilty of no crime. And so Trump said he'd get rid of all the bad hombres, right. But nearly 3/4 of the people he rounded up are not bad hombres. They're just here in the U.S. to work. And so Kristi Noem is running this. She's got no law enforcement experience. She's best known for shooting a puppy she didn't like. So she's done a terrible job. She's gotten the whole country pissed off at ICE. She deserves to lose her job.
So what's the mechanism? How it's possible to impeach her?
I don't know, because Trump sits like a big fat idiot on top of everybody and nobody can get him to budge. Will that change?
Nobody can give him the budge, and he also yells at a lot of people because apparently he was having a conversation with Elizabeth Warren, which isn't a friend of his, and then he also apparently threatened GOP senators who voted for the war power resolution. So he's been having a lot of angry calls lately, where he's been lashing out at people, both his friends and enemies, because there is a pressure campaign to have a there's going to be a reprimand on the War Powers Act, and Trump is stepping pressure campaign to avoid that rare Congress reprimand and everything.
Also, Trump told Minnesota in one of his Truth Social postings that the day of retribution is coming, that he's promising to go after his own citizens, which I believe goes against the Constitution.
Yeah, I think it does go against the Constitution and everything. It looks like there might be some health care that'll be coming and everything. So the timeline is slipping for a potential Senate Obamacare subsidy compromise. I know there was some bill that was passed by the House, but now they're trying to figure out what they're going to do and if they can save the ACA and everything like that. But it'll be interesting to see how this plays out as well, because Trump is even saying he might veto the extension of the care subsidies if they're approved and everything like that. So he's definitely putting his voice out there. He doesn't like anything that Obama has done, and he's finding ways to disrupt a lot of these things.
Yeah, I mean, this year is shaping up to have the most shit going on since 2020 in terms of, the crazy crap that makes, people, discombobulated.
Well, speaking of crazy stuff, and you worked in a nightclub, a couple of nightclubs back in the day and everything like that.
So did Sasha. Sasha worked in a giant floating nightclub.
Yeah, he worked in a floating nightclub and everything like that. But, there was that Swiss fire. And then I think they're saying that the person that committed the fire was actually killed in the blaze. But now they're putting on trial the club owner and everything like that. And there's even this notion that they may have intentionally locked the door and everything. So the order of Swiss bar was where 40 died is ordered to jail as a flight risk because they're afraid that he might go. But they're saying that the Crans, Montana bar owner says the service door was locked during the daily New Year's blaze and everything. And I'm still trying to figure out, as one that's done events and they've got training, why would you lock the back door?
All right, the people who work in bars are people who cannot hold regular daytime jobs because they're too chaotic. That was true for me. I've had some office jobs, but not until I grew up enough to work in a frickin', it's people, the bar owners and workers are often not the most responsible people in the world. And I've worked in some places where if a fire broke out, there would be a lot of dead people. I worked in a bar that it was carpeted in this crappy shag carpeting, the whole freaking bar. If somebody dropped a cigarette on that and it had gone up, it was in a basement. It only had a couple ways out and only one that the customers knew, so there would have been a stampede for the stairs. People would have piled up in the doorway to the stairs and everybody would have freaking died.
Yeah. Well, speaking of bars and everything like this, and both you and Sasha, as you worked in different types of nightclubs, Sasha in that cruise ship and definitely you in the actual bars. But apparently the WHO has gotten into the bar business because they're saying that sugary drinks and alcoholic beverages are getting cheaper. I know you oftentimes complain about how things are cheaper and more tasty these days, and due to consistently low tax rates in most countries. And they're saying that that's fueling obesity, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and injuries, especially in children and young adults. So in two new global reports released today, the World Health Organization is calling on governments to strengthen their taxes on sugary drinks and alcoholic beverages. So they're asking for countries around the world, whether that's France or the US or even Russia, to do something about it, because they're thinking that these taxes might get some of these people to do better, because they're saying that health taxes are one of the strongest tools we have for promoting health and preventing disease. So by increasing taxes on products like tobacco, sugary drinks, and alcohol, governments can reduce harmful consumption and unlock funds for vital health services, is what Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, the WHO Director General, said, and everything like that. So what's our thoughts about this notion of trying to get the world governments to levy taxes, because they're saying that 167 countries already levying taxes on alcohol beverages, while 12 ban alcohol entirely. But definitely, despite this,
Well, we
alcohol.
know prohibition doesn't work, but the U.S. is going in the opposite direction. The U.S. has the lowest percentage of people drinking alcohol since they started keeping track 90 years ago. It's down to, the number of people who drink regularly used to be over 60%. Now it's down to 54%. But Trump wants to attack alcohol. He wants to maybe look at prohibition again. He put out a tweet saying that he sees alcoholics every place. But I don't know. I mean, another thing that I don't know, if they say taxes on this stuff works, fine. But what they can do is, the 0-calorie drinks taste just as good as sugary drinks now. So if there's a way to encourage that, I don't know if they're that much better, but you don't need. I mean, Coke Zero, all those zero drinks. It used to be 30 years ago, you could tell the difference. And the zero, Tab and stuff, the diet drinks tasted like crap. Now they taste great.
Yeah, but speaking of that and everything, and speaking of Trump and all along those lines, that we often talk about him on World Politics and World Edition, and I'd love to hear Sasha's thoughts about this, because there was a time that there were various empire builders and everything like that, whether it was Genghis Khan or a number of other ones that were out there. And apparently he is wanting to take us back to the empire age and everything like that, because of course it's the same man that said he was going to end the Russian-Ukrainian war in a single day. But of course, after the Venezuela raid, he is now putting notice on a couple of various countries and everything like that. So he's definitely made it clear to Colombia, Mexico, Cuba, Greenland, and Denmark that they need to be nervous about where his appetite will take him next and everything. So what is our thoughts about this? Because maybe he's trying to become the new version of a world leader. I know that there was a time of colonial power and everything like that. So is he trying to bring an age of colonialism back to the U.S.?
He can't.
Not so
Go ahead,
fast.
Sasha.
Not so fast. We even don't know what's going to happen next in Venezuela. So he abducted, probably legally, the president and his wife. What's next? Every structure, all people in the government, they are staying the same. And there will be very little support for American, I don't know, the troops or just any invaders in Venezuela. I doubt it very much. And so far, nothing is happening. I never heard anything that they've trying to reshape the government or do anything at all about it. No, it's very, very quiet, because he is scared to get another Vietnam or another Iraq or Afghanistan or something like that. It's very easy to invade. It's very difficult to get out. And he still wants to get his Nobel Peace Prize, although now, with all his talk about the Greenland and other stuff, I personally doubt a lot that he will get ever his Peace Prize.
So Trump there's the saying, a broken clock is right twice a day. And
Right.
Trump is a broken clock. He does whatever he wants. He's packed his government with idiots who just say yes to whatever. And sometimes he comes up with something that isn't stupid. I forgot, he came up with something in the past week. I forget what it was that seemed like it would make sense. But generally, he does random crap that is as likely as not to backfire. And he keeps stacking up all these situations and all these decisions. And his approval is only at 42%. He's not going to beat inflation using tariffs. Job growth has gone pretty much to zero since April. For all of last year, his first year back in office, they averaged like 50,000 new jobs created a month compared to 168,000 a month in Biden's last year. So he's shutting down the economy. All this stuff is going to pile up eventually, probably during the course of the year. And he's only got a 2-person margin in the House of Representatives. If Republicans start peeling off, then he could lose the support of the House and they could start voting for stuff that goes against him. He still has the Senate, so those votes wouldn't necessarily mean anything. But all right, more people are retiring from the Senate and the House, deciding not to run again for re-election than ever before in history, because it sucks to be in the Senate and the House right now. And that speaks to, there's probably going to be a flip of the House for the midterms. So, Trump is going to have a chaotic and troubled year. And you can't, he's not Putin. He doesn't own the US the way Putin owns Russia. He can't keep unilaterally going to war.
They can't do that.
So far, they released only 1% of the Epstein file. So there was stuff filed, and the judge in New York ruled that by Friday, they must absolutely submit all the materials and release the files. And if they have objections, they must file it by Tuesday. Why they cannot release it?
Well, they got to do that by Friday and everything like that. And it looks like Trump is going to be meeting the Colombian president at the White House in the near future. So he's probably going to be threatening the Colombian president with similar action to what was going on in Venezuela and everything like that. Before I get back to some more,
be able to do that to Colombia because Colombia has seen what happened, so they can't be taken by surprise. Also, Colombia is, I don't know, probably twice as big as Venezuela. Does Trump really want to start poking countries that have over 40 million people?
I think Colombia is twice the size, and I think Brazil is probably 3 times the size. I think Brazil
is I don't know, the 4th or 5th most populous country. You can't mess with Brazil. Why would he mess with Brazil? Mexico is 160 million people, half the size of the U.S. You can't mess with Mexico.
He's just talking junk and everything. I know in July, the U.S. is going to celebrate its 250th birthday. I'm wondering if the president has ever read what George Washington said, because in 1796, he announced that he wouldn't seek a 3rd term, even though there's a notion that President Trump is thinking that he wants to do that with a farewell address. And part of his address, he issued a series of warnings about the U.S. and the world. So he said temporary alliances in time of war might be necessary, but the U.S. should otherwise avoid permanent alliances with foreign nations. And that started our American tradition of isolationism. And at home, he warned citizens to beware of extreme partisanship. Division, he said, was a danger to the young American Republic. And apparently the Senate does an annual public rereading of Washington's farewell address. And I'm wondering how many of those senators have actually bothered to listen to what was being said in the address, even though they reread it every year in this public rereading and everything like that. So I'm thinking most people haven't even bothered to hear what he was saying, even though that was 250 years ago. By the way, we've got a listener that had a question, and it sounds like it's more of a entertainment question. So I'll turn it over to you, Rick. But he was asking, what do you know about
the Golden Globes? I watched the Golden
Globes.
And
Mark Ruffalo.
I didn't watch the red carpet before the show, and that seems to be where people made some comments about anti-ICE, including Mark Ruffalo. During the show itself, there was very little political commentary. It was a little surprising, but I would assume that maybe people were told beforehand, let's keep it light. Let's give people a break from politics. And the show was criticized for being too lightweight. And they did a really stupid thing, which was they paired up with a Polymarket type betting company where they ran the betting odds for who was going to win certain awards before the awards were given out. People hated that. People hated that that betting has crept its way into everything, and that they were encouraging people to bet on the frickin' Golden Globes. But the only person who made an explicit, there were a couple jokes in Nikki Glazer's monologue about how CBS News was now BS News, and it was on CBS, so she was making fun of her own network, and that was slightly political because CBS News has kind of gone MAGA. But besides that, the only other explicit comment came from Judd Apatow when he was presenting an award, and he said, "I guess we're a dictatorship now."
Yeah, apparently, I don't know what you heard, but apparently Snoop Dogg, who has become and this has frustrated some of my friends and everything, the ambassador to the Olympic Games and all along those lines, and he's also appeared at other sporting events, but apparently he was censored mid-sentence, and some people are trying to figure out what he was saying because he was presenting an award to Amy Poehler for the best podcast. And
well, and so generally, if you drop an F-bomb, that's what gets you censored. One lady said, my mom told me when she won her award, she said, my mom told me not to say fuck, and that dropped out. And then she said, sorry, Mom. And people loved it. It's a fun moment to get censored, I guess, on this stuff.
Yeah, and I think part of what he might have made a crack at Trump, because apparently when presenting the award, he said, shout out to the Golden Globes for putting the podcast category in this award show, and shout out to all the podcasts, you are winners. And then they said that before opening the envelope with the winner's name inside, he awkwardly paused and said, but the real winner, which prompted the audience to burst into laughter. But and he also started laughing on stage before making a remark that was censored on several live streams of the award show. So apparently in the uncensored footage, he can be heard saying, I'm high as a IMF right now. Y'all had me here too daggone long. So apparently it was a crack on his own use of substance and everything like that.
Okay. Well, I forgot to add. Yeah, Ruffalo said ICE is on the red carpet. He said ICE is, I don't know, evil or un-American or something like that. And several people did give comments like that on the red carpet.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we still have our show that is definitely pro-weed and everything along those lines. As a matter of fact, I know we still do. So we have Weed Wednesday that comes on immediately after Sasha's show about investment. So then before my show that comes on at 4. So I think he comes on around 3 o'clock. So it's an hour or two after yours and everything like that. But it's definitely still on the Pod TV network and everything like that. Well, we can wrap up shortly and everything, unless y'all have some final news items that y'all want to get to and everything like that, because I've got to get to the education program.
Just one quick thing is the head of the coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers has resigned after 19 years.
Oh, he did resign?
Yeah, he left before they could fire him. And it's
and
also
Aaron Rodgers walked off stage because I guess they were going to ask him whether he was going to be back, and he didn't like that comment.
Yeah, he's a cranky guy. He's an old cranky guy. Okay, but that's it. That's all I got.
Any final thoughts you got, Sasha? Otherwise, we're going to get out of here and everything like that. So if you want to let folks know about the investment show, what you've got coming up on tomorrow afternoon, we can do that, and then we'll get on out of here.
Thank you.
No problem.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. So on that note, we're out of here, and we'll see y'all on the morning for World Edition, as well as Modern Investment at 1 o'clock on Wednesday. And of course, the online dinner party, I've got some guests that are in the business world, and I think a couple that are in the entertainment world as well. But right now, let's get on out of here. See if there was last question. Oh, by the way, MDG Dex Arena said thanks and bye-bye. So he was been here watching. So we did have a listener that was watching and following our conversation. So he thanked us.
Yeah, we got a listener.
It's always good. So let's get on out of here.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.